To phone back to the telephone now with the governor of the state of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey. Patrick, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
There, a little delay. You scared me for a second. I thought that I cut you off, man.
Thought it hung up on us.
I thought I cut him off. Yeah.
No, I'm here. I hope you guys are having a good morning.
I think we are so far. Yeah. We thought you might be in the Eastern Panhandle this morning. You are not, correct?
No, but I was up here over the weekend, and so, I try to get back home pretty frequently. It's been a challenging year because there's been a lot going on, but I love coming back up here. I always say my pulse just beats a little bit faster when I get back into the area and spend time at home. So it's just an incredible place.
Will there be a special session anytime this summer or early fall? And if there will be, what would be the reason for it?
There will be a special session at some point. The question is exactly what the day will be. What we've been doing is we've been meeting with members of the legislature pretty consistently, and we've been sharing information back and forth, because when we call the special session, it obviously helps to have collaborated with the legislature in advance so that we can pass something. Simply calling them and not having a deal in advance, I don't think is very helpful. So we've been having a series of meetings, and I think they've been productive. I won't characterize, all the positions back and forth, but we're obviously trying to make meaningful changes and improvements to PEIA in order to make sure that the program is going to be sustainable into the future. PEIA is one of the richest public benefits in the country in terms of the state workers, and it's important for a lot of people to know that. We have to make sure that the state is going to be in a position to continue to offer up that health care benefit that will also be attractive for people to come. And so we're working on that, and we also have to keep tackling a lot of the structural financial issues that are in place, because we have a lot of increases coming next year to the baseline, PEIA, Hope Scholarship, and obviously a number of the adjustments from the federal bills that have passed, that we're going to have to really look under the cupboard and do some important work in order to make sure that we're bringing it to balance. We will do that. We did that this year. So we have a balanced budget scheduled from July of this year to June of next year. Through a lot of the hard work that we did, we effectively paid for through some tough decisions, a lot of the tax cuts that people had received last year. But we're going to keep going, and we're going to make sure that our structure is in good order, and that West Virginia is going to compete better and better with all the states that we touch.
When we talk about fixing PEIA, and I ask the legislators I've had on, the local state senators and delegates and those around the state from various parts of West Virginia, the question always comes, what is the actual definition of fixing PEIA? There's supposed to be an 80-20 split. Medical costs really are an issue for the entire country, not just West Virginia, and there's only so much West Virginia can do to keep down in medical costs. So what is the definition of fixing PEIA? Governor Patrick Morrisey is our guest here on the program, as you see it and can be implemented in the state.
Sure. So first, I think you're exactly correct. One of the challenges we have is that healthcare costs nationally are rising at a very rapid rate, and you see that on hospital costs, you see that on prescription drugs, in particular the specialty drugs. The pricing has gone through the roof, and that's been a real challenge for West Virginia, because while there are always things you can do to try to cut back on some of the costs, the reality is that a lot of these are national trend lines, and while West Virginia can help at the margins in certain areas, some of those national trend lines are very, very difficult for one state to just turn around. So one of the things that we're trying to do is ensure that a couple things happen. First, we're not going to be putting new revenue into the mix in terms of more tax burdens on our citizens. I want to be clear about that. I think that we have to make sure that we're wringing as much of the waste out of the system and in the benefit, and that we have the best type of negotiations which are going to help our citizens. I think that's important. There are things we can do. I've talked with the legislators about trying to put in place a fraud unit, which I think could be very helpful. And then we have to ask some of the tougher questions in terms of what the benefit may look like into the future. If existing people have a particular benefit, what happens to new workers that may come online, and what does that look like? Does it look like it's the same? Is it a little bit different? And so we're going to have those conversations in terms of what PEIA reform looks like. But I think most importantly, we have to make sure that the public knows this is a very rich benefit, and it's quite frankly much richer than virtually all the private offerings here in the state, and it's much richer than many of the state-offered benefits across the country. And so we have to make sure that whatever is in place is going to be durable and is going to still be attractive for people to not only locate in West Virginia, but to help with some of their healthcare costs.
Bill Stubblefield.
Yeah, good morning, Governor. Thanks so much for joining us. There's been so much talk recently about the big, beautiful bill and the impacts that it's going to have on state. I'm going to the three broad categories that's frequently been invoked: Medicaid, the SNAP program, and rural hospitals. Of those, they're going to impact West Virginia. Do you think they're going to impact West Virginia majorly, in a major way? And if so, what steps can you and the legislators take to mitigate some of the impact?
Absolutely. So great question. First of all, one of the things I'm hopeful occurs with this big, beautiful bill is that we could see a shot in the arm in terms of economic growth, right? I mean, that's the major premise behind the bill, that it's going to get more people to work and that there'll be improvements in standard of living, economic growth. So I think that's important, because when you're talking about changes to the state budget, I've always been a believer that you make the right changes so you can run your fiscal house in order, but you also have to make sure that you're growing and lifting up standard of living for people. And so we're all optimistic about that. Then you mentioned a couple of the programs. Well, let's go through them. The SNAP changes are set several years. They'll occur, I believe, in 2028. But a lot of those changes deal with the error rates that are in place in terms of how these benefits are processed. And so states that have high error rates are going to get penalized. And so as we are looking at that, I've challenged my team to be able to lower the error rates, right? So if you lower the error rates, you're not going to be subject to the penalty structure that they put in place. And I don't think it's unreasonable to ask states to lower error rates, right? I mean, that's the piece on the SNAP side, and we're going to do everything we can to make the changes necessary so that we don't feel the negative effects on the SNAP end. So I think that's one of your questions. Second, there are Medicaid changes that are coming. I think some of them are very good. Having work requirements in Medicaid for a lot of these individuals is a very positive thing. We want to get more people working, and I think that's critical that we take advantage of that. And those are some of the estimated changes and savings, but work should always be rewarded. Work should be incentivized. That's critical to do, and not enough people are working in some of these programs, and we have to change that. So I think that that's one piece of it. Now, there are other changes to Medicaid as well that phase in over a period of time that we're going to look at very, very closely, and obviously talk to our federal delegation about to make sure that that doesn't have a negative impact on the budget. But there is something that's also very positive for West Virginia on top of the other economic pieces. That's the Rural Transformation Fund. West Virginia is guaranteed a minimum of $500 million to invest in rural health care. And guys, as you know, virtually every county in West Virginia is considered rural. And that makes a big difference, because there could be a lot of strategic investments that help move the needle in terms of healthcare outcomes, whether we're trying to address diabetes or obesity or COPD or other disease state conditions, we have a chance now through these federal resources to possibly partner up with the private sector and create something incredibly special that could move the needle on the healthcare outcome side, could really be a big plus economically for the state. So we're looking very deeply into that. And while it's hard to quantify what that means to the citizens of the state early, you know for certain that there's $500 million from the feds that's out there. I'd love to find a way to come up with a proposal that really draws on a lot of additional capital investment from the private sector and put something that's sustainable together for the long run that could also lead to incredible job opportunities here in West Virginia while we're moving the healthcare outcomes forward. So that rural piece is a huge opportunity for West Virginia. And I know that there are some concerns with some of the provisions in the bill, but the monies from the feds comes first. And if we do this right, we could really supercharge what we're doing here in West Virginia, both in terms of healthcare and economically, and that's certainly really exciting.
Governor, that $500 million you're referring to, is that part of the $50 billion that was added on from Alaska and Missouri's request?
Yeah, the 50, yes, it is part of the broader array. Every state gets a minimum of $500 million, and then CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they have discretion in terms of how they're going to spend the other $25 billion. So we're expecting that the federal agencies will start putting some guidance out, and the state will have an opportunity between now and the end of the year to submit an application. And I've already been talking not only with our team about it, but different people on the outside about how we can put something that's really special for West Virginia. It's an opportunity that we haven't had in a long while, and I think we can do some really great things with it. So, obviously, in every time you have a bill, there are going to be pluses. There are going to be some challenges. I am very hopeful in terms of economic growth opportunities that we're going to have. And obviously, as time goes on, as there are some of the challenges, we have a chance to grow our way to the next space. And that fund that was created, that Rural Healthcare Transformation Fund, could be a big part of what helps us move forward.
John Gilstrap.
Good morning, Governor. This is John.
Hey, John.
I'm going back to Medicaid. One element of the work requirement, in principle, I think that's a wonderful idea. But when it gets down to the details, I get concerned. There are pockets of the state, as you know, where employment is very difficult to find, and where transportation to whatever reporting facility would be required would be very difficult. Are there mechanisms to account for that within these changes within Medicaid, where the work requirement is simply not feasible?
I think that there are going to be opportunities to make it work. And remember, there's no specific requirement that you have to do X type of job. There are a lot of opportunities that people are going to have to contribute in some way. And there's work to be done in every corner of West Virginia. And so I think if the goal behind it is to actually provide some opportunities for people, whether it's 20, 25 hours of a week of work or 30 hours a week, I think that there's a chance to do things that haven't been done before. But we're working with CMS and others in terms of the mechanisms for verification and to do that. And I think it can be done. I know that there have been some struggles with some states in the past, but when it comes to work is good, work is noble, and we should try to have more focus on people contributing in some form. I think that's really, really important, and we'll get far more benefits out of that than detriments. But we're certainly going to be looking closely at the data to make sure that no one falls through the cracks.
And how long is the fuse on that, the changes in Medicaid, specifically regarding the work requirement?
I believe that's over the course of the next year. So we're going to be looking for more information from CMS on that as well in terms of that rollout. So that's going to obviously take some time and effort on the part of the state to put together. But I am looking forward to that because there's a chance to have that in place for Medicaid, for SNAP, and for these programs. And once again, if we can encourage work in West Virginia, that matters. Guys, I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is one of the single biggest problems we have in West Virginia is that our workforce participation rate is lower than any other state in the nation. It's 54.2%, and the national average is 62.1%. Think about that for a minute. If we could just start to move the needle a little bit in these areas, the benefits for the state are going to be incredible. And so I'm excited to do that. And I think it's important that regardless of the challenges, we're always looking for more and more opportunities for people to get to work.
And have there been any changes through the administration changes? Are we still moving strong on the broadband expansion throughout West Virginia? For example, will it ever come to my house?
Yeah, well, we are. In fact, we were out in front very early. We saw that there were going to be some changes in the program early on. So I sat down with Commerce Secretary Lutnick early on, and then we got the extension because we knew that they were changing the program, and I think a lot of those were positive changes in terms of some of the efforts to reduce some of the pork and some of the woke crap that the Biden administration was trying to put in place. And so knowing that, we work closely with the Trump administration, and now we're going through a process where we're going to get ready to get the bids that come in from all the different telco providers in the state. And then I believe in early September, we'll be submitting our revised application in to the Commerce Department. And I'm very optimistic that West Virginia will be one of the first states in the country because of how we handled the last 6 months. You know, a lot of people were running around saying, oh, well, let's just submit what had been worked on in the past. Well, no one would expect the new administration to do things exactly the way the last one did. So we got out in front of that, and I think we're going to get rewarded. My hope is that that process, we get the application in September, and hopefully we get a fast approval, and then we get to work. We got to start building. And everything, in my mind, is speed to build, and everything that we do is what's going to allow us to compete more effectively with all of our competitive states.
Is it within your authority to do an executive order for locality pay?
No, I think that requires a statutory change. And so I know that one of the comments I've heard from folks across West Virginia, and especially in the Eastern Panhandle, is that a lot of the positions here, whether you're talking about a deputy sheriff position or you're talking about a first responder or a teacher, is that it's very hard to compete. Especially you can look at the pay delta between Jefferson, Berkeley, and Loudoun County, and I think that's a very real problem. And I've been an advocate of ensuring that West Virginia is paying competitively compared to all the states that we touch. I think that's important because the markets are different up in the Eastern Panhandle and the Northern Panhandle and the Mid-Ohio Valley or the coal fields. And so I think that the pay should reflect some of the differences, especially based on that competition with the other states. So we're going to continue to look for different ways for West Virginia to become more competitive. And one of the things I've always said is that we've got to tackle a lot of big issues. Right now, we've been having a lot of discussions with the legislature on PEIA, and that's a big one. But we know that the school aid formula hasn't been opened up in a very, very long time, and there are a lot of big changes in terms of cost on the education front compared to the baseline expenditures that we have. So there's a lot of work to be done to address a lot of the structural challenges that we have, but we're going to try to roll our sleeves up and knock out as many as we can, but you got to do it one step at a time. I mean, we've invested incredible amounts of time in PEIA alone, And, we want to get some agreement on that whenever that may be, whether it's now in the next few weeks or it waits till September. I think it's really critical that we start out lead on PEIA because we have to make some decisions back in the fall in terms of what we'll be doing, and so it's going to really require legislative action before we submit our proposals and work with the PIA board.
We only have a minute left here, Bill, so instead of getting into a question, I'm going to just wrap it up here.
I was going to follow very quickly with you, Rob's question about locality pay. Does that imply, Governor, that you will introduce that to the legislators next January as one of your major issues?
Yeah, I got 30 seconds for that answer, too.
I'm sorry, introduce. Well, we're certainly going to be doing everything we can to keep having West Virginia be more competitive, and I'm a big advocate for that. And I think that you're going to see a lot of additional changes, and they're going to benefit all of the counties, but they're going to make areas, give tools to areas to have them compete more effectively. So I'm going to keep pushing for that and do everything I can to make that happen. Obviously, we've got a lot of items on our list, but we certainly need to make sure that the Eastern Panhandle and all regions of the state can compete.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your time today, and I should say Governor.
Yeah, thanks, Governor.
Thank you kindly. Take care of that Darrell Coles guy.
A lot of big things for the Eastern Panhandle, and got a lot of people. I know someone said the other day, we had a lot of people on our transition team, and we've got some picks from here. So the Eastern Panhandle is going to do very, very well.
Thank you, sir.
Every county will do well, but I try to get up here as much as I can to listen to what's on people's minds.
I hate to cut you off, Patrick, but I'm up against a hard clock here, man. Have a great day.
Thanks. Be well.
Okay.